On the West Her Hotline with us here on WGR. I wanted, I know I texted you earlier today. I wanted to sort of expand on the conversation we partly had yesterday about receiver, right? And sort of maybe
Hmm.
get a little more into each idea, not like every guy in the league, but like anyone that makes sense as an idea. When we talked yesterday, recognizing you said like it's, pie in the sky and probably not realistic, but like what would you like to see them do? How hard would you like to see the Bills go at it? You mentioned Justin Jefferson. So I want to start there, and then we'll work our way down to like the more realistic trades and or free agents. Obviously, you're not telling us you think Justin Jefferson's going to get moved, but I would tell you I would want Brandon Beane. If I owned a team, I would want my GM to call the Minnesota Vikings and just ask them, hey, is there anything at all that would get you to move this player? You're starting over at quarterback again. Like how smart is it to keep paying top dollar for the best receiver in the league, arguably, when you're at square one or not even you're at square zero at quarterback? Like that could get kind of silly after a while. So I'd want to gauge whether or not if they hang up on me and laugh, they hang up on me and laugh.
Absolutely. You 100% have to do that. I think it's the due diligence of any, GM who's trying to win to do something like that. If that's the position you need, that you feel like that's going to be something that gets you over the top, I don't care what team it is or what player it is. I don't think that other GM is necessarily going to laugh at you. They're going to probably respect it and say, yeah, I totally get it, but that's just not happening, right? Because you have to do it. But you never know when you get a GM and say, I mean, did you ever hear the story about how the Luka Doncic trade happened, with the Lakers? Like, that's what happened. Like, what's his name? Rob, I forget his name, for the Lakers. He runs the Lakers, and apparently he literally just, called up the GM of the Mavs. He's like, hey, you want to get together for coffee? I just want to run something by you. And they started talking, and that's what happened. And it gets to it, right? You just never know where these conversations can go. I mean, heck, and now again, I'm not trying to just float names out there, but think of Joe Brady. Why wouldn't you just call the Cincinnati Bengals and say, did you ever think about moving Jamar Chase? Like, would you ever think about that? You just gave him a lot of money. They're not a team that spends a lot of money like that. I absolutely. Why would they not call the Jets about Garrett Wilson? If they're going to call the Dolphins about Jalen Waddle last year and, the Jets about Quinnen Williams, why not call the Jets about Garrett Wilson? To me, the overall point of what I'm saying here is nothing should be off the table for Brandon Beane to try and at least investigate.
I love the Wilson idea, right? Same thing. I had him on my list of guys to ask you about because there's a bit making the rounds today of Sauce Gardner talking about how hard it was to deal with him in practice. And that's a former teammate. But yeah, the logic is exactly the same to me. If you're going to call Miami about Waddle, you should call the Jets about Wilson. Everything I just said about Justin Jefferson. I mean, Garrett Wilson is not thought of like Justin Jefferson. But, what kind of opportunity has he had with the quarterbacking that he's been living with on the Jets? Even when Aaron Rodgers was there. I mean, Aaron Rodgers is famous, but in the state he was in then, I mean, I don't know. I think we still haven't really even seen what Garrett Wilson can really do in the league. And, do they want to try to go get Kyler Murray and have Garrett Wilson there to pair with him? Okay, well, that makes sense. But if you're starting over at quarterback again, like if you're thinking about the draft or developing a young guy, same point I just made about Justin Jefferson totally holds with the Jets and Garrett Wilson. What am I paying you $30 million a year for if I don't have a guy that can get you the ball?
That's right. And, there are other names, right, that we talk about. So those are as I say, pie in the sky names. Those are the names that you make a call and you see where it leads and you just never know. And then, of course, you get to the Alec Pierces and you get to the Rashid Shaheeds. Romeo Dobbs. I mean, Wan'Dale Robinson is a nice player. I like Wan'Dale Robinson. Like, he's a free agent, I believe. Like, these are names. These are good players, I think, that you could put on the Buffalo Bills, and they become a bit of a better offense. They're not those types of players. And I just think it's time, as we discussed yesterday, for this team to take as big of a swing as possible. This is not Josh Allen's, third year anymore when they traded for Stephon Diggs. Josh is going to be 30 this year. And he just signed that contract extension last year. He's got 5 more years left on it. I mean, we all hope he plays beyond that. but what's he got? How many more real great years? He does have some.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how many, but you need to maximize as much as possible now, and I think that you have to make those calls.
I think it's fair to view him as hopefully he's at a plateau where he stays at the level he's at right now for a few years.
Mm-hmm.
But it's hard for me to imagine him getting any better than he's been, athletically speaking, right? Like the days of hurdling linebackers and all that. Like, I just think that gets harder to imagine as you get into the second half of your career, which really, honestly is about where Allen is right now. So, that's a reality I think you got to really confront. How about Mike Evans for this, Sal? Because he is a guy who's been a number one, but he's older, and, there might be a little concern. I mean, he finally had an injury-riddled year that kept him from getting another 1,000 yards. Every year prior in his career, he'd been over 1,000 yards, but he's definitely on the wrong side of 30. What do you think of that idea? Because I read a long piece by Matthew Berry, I think it was, who compiles, like, every year after the combine, here's what I heard, right? Like, here's who I was talking to, this person and that person, and he mentioned that Evans, like the Bills, he heard the Bills tied to Evans. So along with Rashid Shaheed, by the way, I don't think you and I or you with Mike and myself have talked about Mike Evans. What do you think of that idea?
I mean, I love Mike Evans as a player. I do. And if you told me right now, like, hey, you're just going to insert Mike Evans on the Buffalo Bills, great. Like, that's awesome. I need to know how much money he's going to make. Maybe the over $20 million is a little inflated. Think about his age. How many? Is he going to get that kind of money? If he is, I think maybe I might need to be out on that. I think I can maybe spend my resources elsewhere. But the thought of him is juicy. Mike Evans is not injury prone. He's not. But Bulldog, you and I are the perfect guys to talk about this and say this, because as we get older, we're both active. We've been athletes. It's not that and I'm not putting ourselves on the level of an NFL player.
I know.
It's not that you get hurt more, but recovery takes more time, right? Mm-hmm. And those things start to pile up. And when I see what happened to him last year, I just start to think, like, what about the next injury? Like, how long is he going to be out for? And what's that look like? And because of these injuries, does that impact him going forward? And I could be reading too much into that. That's fine. Maybe it's me. Maybe he's a little too cautious there. But that's what would scare me about Mike Evans. Is he a true number one, can do everything? I don't think he is anymore. I don't know. I mean, he might be still over top of Khalil Shakir, but again, he's not in the level of the Jefferson or Chase or those guys we talked about. Still really good. I like him a lot. I just wonder about, if you're going to pay him that much, he is a little bit older. Mm-hmm. What does that look like? Look at last year. I know he only played 8 games, but in that half sample, hit his lowest yards per reception of his career and his lowest catch percentage of his career. And I don't know, like, right now, how to wash that. Like, because he only played half a season. It's not a full sample size. Baker's a pretty accurate quarterback. He also had injuries himself and wasn't the same a lot of last year. But I do look at that and go, is that where he's starting to hit the wall a little bit?
Right. You always got to worry about it. I'm laughing over here because you're talking about the injuries. I try to work out. I do work out in some way, shape, or form just about every weekday. Some push-ups, some crunches, some bird dogs, 90 minutes on an exercise bike. Friday after that workout, in the shower, I hurt my back.
Yeah, there you go.
But it's just like, what? Like, just walk. Like, what was that? What was that? And now it still hurts now. I mean, that's, whatever. I'm 60. All right. Mike Evans is not 60. But yes, as age is unforgiving, Sal, is what it is.
The one I'm dealing with, for some reason, we were on the cruise a couple weeks ago, and my knee just kind of blew up. It still is. It's swollen, and it's like, man, and it really hurts, and I'm limping half the time I'm not. And we really think what happened. We're not sure. Like, I was on the treadmill on the cruise ship, and because the cruise ship was rocking, it made my knee, go a certain way, and I don't even notice it. I get off, I'm like, what is going on here? And I think it's literally because the ship was rocking a little bit.
It doesn't take much. It does not take
right.
much. All right. Well, we've covered most of it here. One name that I saw on the free agent list, and I'm hopeful, I should have checked. Is Christian Kirk a free agent? He is, isn't he?
Yes.
What about
He's also very good friends with Josh Allen.
Right. Like, that's another guy that to me is not, he's not a number one, but is he someone that could help you? Like, would he maybe make you better? I think, but it's not, it's not the gold standard, alpha guy, but maybe that's a guy that could, at this stage of his career, be someone that could complement what they've got here.
Yeah, I mean, again, if you look at their core, you could convince me a lot of guys that could just be inserted and help them. And maybe Christian Kirk would be one of those guys. Again, though, dealt with injuries the last 2 years. I think he did play, he did play 13 games last year, I'm looking, but I think like he was in and out of the lineup quite a bit. The year before that, injuries in Jacksonville. So, yes, I think he has a skill set and the relationship and all that. You could check some boxes. I just feel like if the Bills come out of this cycle and we get to, even after the draft, I guess the draft will be another pressure point here because they could draft a first rounder. But let's say they go up to the draft and they come away with a couple of nice receivers and they sign a Romeo Doubs to a 4-year deal and a Christian Kirk to a 2-3-year deal. Like, aren't we all going to be like, you're just kind of doing what you did with Palmer and Samuel, right? Like, it's the same thing. Is it really going to help? And I need the top end, not the bottom end lifted up. I need the top end to be filled a little higher.
Yeah, I like the way that sounds. Before you go, anything surprising with the franchise tag deadline being 20 minutes ago? I guess the latest news was that the Bengals weren't going to tag or did not tag Trey Hendrickson. That was speculated to be the case, but it definitively is the case. How active should the Bills be in shopping for someone like Trey Hendrickson?
I mean, Trey Hendrickson is going to cost a lot of money. I'm all for getting a pass rusher here, but if you allocate all those resources to pass rusher and you leave kind of wide receiver by the wayside, I'm not going to be as much of a fan of that. And look, I could be totally wrong about this, but I just feel like, and I think I said this to you yesterday or the other day before, I feel like Jim Leonard's scheme is going to help that yes, of course, who wouldn't want a Max Crosby? Who wouldn't want a Trey Hendrickson? I'm not saying that. But I also think that you can elevate what they already have or the guys they bring in simply because of what they're going to do defensively. Like, they're going to be better there even without those guys, even though those guys are great. So I think the return on investment would be a lot higher at wide receiver or even, helping out at safety or linebacker. They could pick some spots here for me. Now, as far as franchise tags, surprising. I guess I was a little surprised that the Jets did decide that they did tag Hall, right? Breece Hall?
They did. Yeah.
Yeah, I was a little surprised about that. I thought that the momentum was going the other way, as of a couple of weeks ago, that like we'll see. And then, maybe it wasn't the momentum going the other way, but that they could still trade him, but there were teams poking around. I heard at the combine that like Kansas City could be looking for a running back, right? They might. Yeah. I don't know now if Love is going to be even fall to them enough in the draft. So are they going to go out? Are they going to shop for a Kenneth Walker now? Are they going to trade for a Breece Hall? You know who the guy is that gets tied to Kansas City? I don't know if I told you this from the combine. Travis Etienne.
Yeah, I've heard that name too.
Yeah. So, maybe that was one. And then, I guess the Colts are interesting because of what they're doing. And they're allocating that resource to Daniel Jones. They're tagging him.
Transition tag, though, Pierce. Right? Not franchise. Transition tag, I thought I read on Jones,
okay.
Right?
Thank you. Thank you for clearing that up. I saw that. Well, that gives them, room to operate there and try to keep him, but they also want to keep Alec Pierce. I just don't know how they're going to be able to do all that.
Yep. All right, Sal. Enjoy your time in Florida. And we will try to hook up later in the week.
All right, you got it, buddy. Thanks.
That's our dude, Sal Capaccio, live on the Western Hotline, just pouring over, some free agent ideas, trade ideas, specifically at receiver. Just wanted to run, because I feel like we have Sal on, and I talk about one guy at a time, and I just wanted to, just sort of get him on the record on the whole group of guys. And that's 2 days in a row, and I don't expect this to change. I loved how he said that. Rather than lift up the bottom, I need them to fill in the top. That is a great way to put what many, I think, feel has been ailing the Bills' receiving core specifically, if not really the whole roster. Like, the bottom of the roster has been good. Like, there's not – everything Terry Pagula said at that news conference wasn't an embarrassment. He stepped in it a few times, as he usually does. The reason why they don't put him in that situation that often. And talking about the roster overall and how good it is and rattling off the seedings they've had in the playoffs as proof that Brandon Beane has done such a great job putting this roster together, I thought was pretty shaky. The depth they have, though, has been good. I think the fact that they've been able to maintain their level of contender status despite the number of injuries they've had, significant injuries over the last couple of years, does speak to the depth. So like the bottom end of the roster has been backfilled very effectively. But what's missing is the flowers. I've got all the fertilizer. I'm watering. They're all getting enough sun. They're like, where are the flowers? Where are the stars of the show? When people walk by your house, they're like, oh, look at that garden. The Bills do not have that part. And that's what the top end of the receiver